You know, too many of our kids get failed by the system, and I particularly see this in my interest in education. Now, so many of our kids are missing out, and they're not just Indigenous kids, they're disadvantaged kids. You know, some of the figures are as high as 100,000 kids. You know, that's a lot of kids who aren't going to school.
Our systems often put Koori kids in the too hard basket and feel that our issues are often difficult to deal with. It's somewhat difficult, and we do have complex issues. However, talking about these particular issues are an important step forward to addressing the health and well-being of Koori kids.
And in some instances, schools are failing our kids. You know, kids don't get through, they don't stay on, they don't attend, or they attend irregularly. They don't meet the grades that they ought to be meeting at critical times in their lives. And this doesn't prepare them for life and doesn't prepare them to function in society, whether that's, you know, the Aboriginal community or the broader community.
I think our communities and our parents and our elders and our organisations do a magnificent job often in helping our kids be resilient and cope with loss and trauma, but again, sometimes it's overwhelming. I think the wider social systems don't do nearly enough, and in fact they are often part of the cause of the grief and loss and trauma. And I think that there is a bit of a carelessness perhaps, or maybe a lack of engagement by the wider white community, Australian society, that sees that this is an Indigenous problem rather than an Australian problem.
Meanwhile, we should also be working with the systems, as we are doing in this study with FACTSIA, so that we can bring that Indigenous perspective, and so that we are not always being made to really fit in, but treated in our own right as a group.
And we won't really have the resources to really tackle what we need to do until it's understood that this is an Australian issue, not an Indigenous specific one.
Well, our systems aren't set up for the Indigenous population. Our systems are set up for the non-Indigenous population, and we're supposed to fit in.
A lot of our own Aboriginal organisations on the ground are doing really good work, you know, when it comes to assisting families and children particularly. And I think this stuff needs to be showcased. And I'm hoping that, you know, something like the network can actually do that, so that communities are able to send in the positive stories, the stories where they have been able to see change, make change, and have been able to support families. And often you hear about these programs, and they've operated on very bare sort of resources. If they can do that, I'm hoping that that information, and again it comes from the strengths, if that information can be transferable across to other communities, I think that's got to be a good thing.
You can put on a program for whatever, but if it doesn't have an Indigenous perspective, its usefulness is questionable.
I think there is still a long way to go in terms of getting the systems and the Australian systems, I guess, from a service provision point of view. There's a lot of things that need to happen there and need to change, and I think change being the operative word. We haven't done things right previously, so obviously something's not working. So if something's not working, what do? You reassess and change the way you do things.
We need to pay attention to these things and do something about it.